We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
Before we talk about the end, let's start from the beginning. As you can see from my wall dedicated to my semester abroad, I studied abroad in Madrid during the spring 2020 semester. A semester that will definitely go down in history. Obviously, COVID-19 impacted my long-awaited abroad experience, much like it impacted every single person in the world in some way. But before the world shut down temporarily, I got to experience an entire 2 months of Spain, enough time to have me completely fall in love with the country and the culture. Like anything unknown, you can only have a very general idea of what you're heading into when you go abroad, which is exactly how I felt right when I got onto my flight to Madrid. The ideas I had all stemmed from various cliches about what the abroad experience truly is, which crowded my mind with the various possibilities of what it would be like. Regardless of the source of your information, people always paint a very specific image of how study abroad can change your life, almost making it sound too good to be true. Until you realize it is. It's all true. In fact, when you Google study abroad, you get a list of websites, IES among them, who happen to feature their very own cliches. So here's the first one. Study abroad teaches you to see the world in a different way. In order to properly explain this, let's use a basic example of Harry Potter. Before he found out the wizarding world existed, he had a very basic understanding of the world because he understood it to be exactly like the one he grew up in. In reality, life in England was all he knew, especially since he spent the majority of his time in a cupboard under the stairs. By being exposed to this new, magical society, his perspective of the world changed. He began to view everything around him differently. He began to notice what in his world was magic and what was not. Although it might sound like a far-fetched allegory, at its core, it's very much the same as traveling abroad. You might think you understand the world around you because you understand the place in which you live in, but other parts of the world aren't the same. By living in a different country, you are able to learn more about other cultures, customs, and languages, which broadens your perspective on not only your life, but the life of those around you. One misconception a lot of my friends and I had before arriving was that Spain's cuisine was similar to other countries in South America because of the shared language, which is far from true. It's something so simple, but it makes you realize how self-centered we can be on our perception of the world by failing to try to understand it. Through my classes, my culture trips with IES, and through my own adventures in Madrid, I learned so much more than I could have from a textbook, which is why it really taught me to see the world differently, and it taught me to always use the world around me as my classroom. Cliché number 2. Study abroad forms everlasting friendships. In Spain, I chose to live in an apartment where I was placed with 5 girls that ultimately became some of the best friends I have ever had. And here's the catch. We would never have met if it wasn't for studying abroad. We all attended different universities, had different majors, and for some of us, we were even in different grades. And it made me realize how the people you meet throughout your life can have a profound impact, changing you forever. So it's important to be open to opportunities such as study abroad in order to meet new people. I definitely didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, I don't know what my study abroad experience would have been like if I hadn't met these girls. And finally, cliché number 3 and 4. Study abroad forces you outside of your comfort zone and increases your self-confidence. Everybody in the program went into the semester with different backgrounds. For some, this was their first time leaving the US. For others, going abroad wasn't that different from previous trips. For me, I had traveled outside the US before, but it was the first time I was on my own, figuring things out by myself, which can be quite scary. To my surprise, in the first month of being there, I even traveled to Granada by myself by bus to visit my friend who was studying abroad there. This really shows that you don't know what you're capable of until you're forced to try something new. And in my experience, studying abroad encourages an incredible amount of growth in a very short period of time. This is especially true in my case, since I only got half of the full experience, but I definitely have been changed forever. I think one of the biggest learning lessons from the entire experience was learning to not be afraid of the unknown. I didn't know what my study abroad experience was going to be like, and I didn't know what problems I was going to face going to a country where I didn't speak the language, for example. But the point is, I learned. And the more you learn and mature, the stronger of a person you become because of it. So yeah, those are cliches, but they happened to me, just as advertised. And it got me to thinking. The very definition of a cliche is a phrase or opinion that is overused. Which means the very fact that it is repeated over and over again must mean that it holds some elements of truth. So here's one more cliche. Live every day to the fullest. It's so cliche, so cheesy, but it's so true. If I learned anything from my study abroad experience and from the pandemic, is that you don't know what tomorrow will look like. And if 2020 has taught us anything, is that you don't know the next time you'll be able to travel or even eat at a restaurant like normal. But that is why you have to live in the now and make the most of every day. So, don't waste any of your opportunities and take advantage of every day, because life is too short.